Hey folks, Keith McGowan, the Outboard Dad, here to help you have a better boating experience. Please like, subscribe, send me any comments that you have. Don't forget, soon on Amazon is going to be my outboard motor buying guide for $20. And with that, if you send me an email at keith@outboarddad.com with a proof of purchase, not on Amazon yet, it's coming soon, so stay posted. You can shoot me an email ahead of time if you want, so I make sure I get to you. With proof of purchase, I will give you a free session of consultation of a motor you're working on or you're thinking of buying. So right now we're going to get back into this Yamaha. We broke off one of our grease fittings. So if you look at that, right, they get kind of corroded in there. They are steel. So I wouldn't want to leave that. Yeah, it did squirt a little bit of grease out. So would it have loosened up over time? Maybe. And if it was on the boat, maybe I would have left it for the season or something. But eventually someone's going to put their grease fitting on there and it's going to continue to corrode and it's going to snap off, and then they're going to have a problem probably the day before they're trying to get out on the water. So that's why I want to do as many of these things as we can to ensure the best possible boating experience. So let me get my drill bits. We're going to drill this out. I have a couple different size Zerk fittings and taps, so we'll see how we can make this work. So we'll take a look. Nice little Harbor Freight kit. So I have different size, and I'll get my taps out. And let's drill this first and get it all the way out. I'm not worried about reusing the old threads. That's too much work. So I'm gonna kind of get a tap that matches one of these, and then we will go ahead and, well, we'll start drilling first and see how far we have to go. I'm gonna start with a small bit because I just wanna have a nice little pilot hole. Any of you that know me know I'm a big fan of Jack of all sprays. It works great as a penetrating oil. So let's get in here. Remember, this is only aluminum. Once we get past what's left of the Zerk fitting, it's only aluminum, so I don't want to go too crazy. And we'll go the next size up and then we'll clean it out. So the grease fitting that I have happens to be an M6 tap. So I got my 6mm tap. And let's see if we can get this tapped out. A little bit of lube. So it doesn't seem to be starting, so I have a feeling there may be a little bit of the old one left inside there, so I'm going to check it out. I am going to clean it out with some brake cleaner. If you notice, I have my rebuild going on over here, so I have everything covered, and I'm going to spray away from that because I don't want to get any junk in my rebuild. So now that I look at it closely and with cheater glasses, I see there's still half of a piece in there. So if not, we'll just drill it again. Looks like it came out. So I'm going to be sure to clean all the filings out of this and grease it up really good when we put it back together. Now, if we pick the right tap, this should thread right in. Boom. We'll tighten that up a little bit. I know I'm going to get grease out of that now, but I'll do a quick test anyway, and we'll use that grease to lube it up, and then we'll put this back together. Grease fitting is in, nice and tight. Want to clean this. Make sure there's no filing stuck in the old grease or the old new grease that we put in there. So let's make sure that it does what it's supposed to do. Bolt right in. Good to go. So I don't know if anybody remembers when we took this apart. This is the trim sending unit. As you can see, it's not functioning. We're going to leave it on there. I could take the 2 screws out and eliminate it, but at least now when the new owner gets it, he can decide whether he wants to change it. It can be done once you tilt it up. But you know what, just as a precaution, I'm going to go ahead and loosen these screws for him and put some grease in there so it'll be easier for him to get it back apart. Or maybe I'll just leave it off and then put the screws back in so he knows what he needs to do and it'll be ready to go for him. Then we'll finish putting this back together. Okay, so whoever buys this motor is going to be very happy I took those out. They were a bear to get out, lubed them up. I didn't have to heat it, I was close to it, and got them both out, lubed up the holes really good, ran the screws in and out a couple times. So now because when you're working underneath the engine, it's going to be a lot tougher to access these other than when I had it on my workbench. So we have everything lubed up. We know our grease fittings are all good. So we're going to continue putting this back together. And we know we tilt nicely. I put my ground wire on here on this other grease fitting. So now we're ready to just tighten this up. Now again, I'm not going to squeeze it super tight. We're just going to get a little snug on it. But somehow it's kind of locked, not locked up, but a little too tight. I'm going to back it off a little bit. This is a lock nut. And then our steering tube, this had hydraulic steering on it. Our steering can go through here. And now we know this moves the way it's supposed to. So let's get it back on the stand and then we'll start working on those power tilt and trims. So now we know we have working grease fittings here, and a new one here. So we know everything's ready to go so that when someone pumps grease in this now, it's not going to be, really hard. It should go right in and should squirt out of it. If you remember those bushings, they had like a notch in them that we cleaned out so the grease can get forced in to the tilt tube. And then you want to work the motor up and down a couple times each time you grease it. So that part is ready to go. So we have two power tilt and trims that Bill gave us. One was on the motor and leaking, was a replacement one that he bought. Not sure what he spent for it. And it did work for a short period of time and then started leaking. And his old one started leaking. He had repaired or replaced some of the seals and still had a problem with them leaking. So let's inspect them one by one. We're going to pick the cleanest one first. So this one looks to be the cleanest one right now, and it looks like just the top, oh no, it looks like the bottom seal is leaking too. Well, 10 years ago, but I noticed paint on it. So I'm going to get into these. We're going to open these up. I'm going to show you a homemade tool. Actually use it for Evinrude. This thing's got some weight to it. But actually use it for Evinrude, but I'm going to show you how we can use it for this as well. There's smaller holes in these caps, so it's a little more difficult. What I'll do is I'll just drill it out a little bigger, even tap it a little bit and get some bolts in there, and we'll get this apart. So let's get this in the vise. We want to make sure we don't damage our line under here. So first we're going to take these caps off of here. So there is a tool that Yamaha sells that slides right over top of this, fits right in all four of these, and you put a little air hammer on it, takes it right off. Expensive tool if you want to go buy that from Yamaha for I don't know how many times you're going to use it. If you've seen some of my past videos, I made a tool that I used for Johnson Evinrude where I was able to just slip a couple bolts in it. The teeth of the bolts grab the holes and go right around. These holes are so small that the bolts will probably break off. So a couple different techniques we're going to try. If these have been off, which he said he did replace the seals on these one time, then we can probably maybe knock it with a pin in the direction it needs to go and a hammer, and maybe we'll get it loose enough that we can spin it off. Or we can just catch the edge of the cap with a pipe wrench. Maybe a little brutal, some guys will say. But the seal is underneath here, so we're not going to damage anything up top. We just make sure it's clean. And again, we're not going to go at it and bend it. If it doesn't come loose, then we've got to do something else. So let's start with the less invasive and see how this goes. A good solid knock. Got them both loose. Now we can just take our pliers and just gently remove it the rest of the way. So there may be a little pressure behind it, so I'm going to kind of hold my hands over it. But I am seeing some milky oil come out of it. So we're going to have to drain this thoroughly. Probably a good idea we'll let some air in here where the plug is to make sure that's okay too. I'm going to put it back in, just not tighten it all the way so it gets a little bit of air. So as I'm looking at this, this is all crusty. And this looks pretty old. I mean, it's not rubbery at all. We'll do all of them. We'll take the rest one off. We'll take this one off. Inspect the rest of them. We'll also get the outer O-ring here so it seals off well that way. So what I'm going to try and do is dump as much of the oil out first before I take the next cap off. So I want to try and work this out, cocking back and forth. because it was functioning properly, so we know these seals are good at the bottom. But I want to get it the rest of the way out and inspect this shaft really closely. So I want to look at this really closely. I see something here, a little roughness here. Looks like maybe it got paint on it or something. The rest of it looks good. I don't see any nicks. We'll put my cheater glasses on. And what we'll do is, yeah, that's like a little maybe sealer or something. Yeah, it's a coating on the outside. So we're going to take a really fine Scotch-Brite pad and clean this up really good. Make sure there's none. Oh, I see a little. Oh, we're going to clean this up really good. Oh, yeah. So right here, you can hardly see it. But right there at the top, if you feel with my screwdriver, if you watch, it catches in there. You see that? That's what the problem is. So this is no good. We're going to have to inspect the other one really closely and then see what our other power tilt and trim has on it. But this is no good, because every time that goes down in there, it's going to cut that seal. So it'll work for a short period of time, but then it'll have a problem.